Consciousness, consciousness, consciousness is like the ocean, the ocean, the ocean, the ocean. The H2O network, purveyors of passion, seeking to expand human consciousness from the deep depths of the universe of your soul.
Talking about someone.
Well, I love your work, and I love your books, and I love the art of intuition.
I'm so glad.
And the way that it's laid out, because from my perspective, anytime that I interview or research or I look at things, just from my perspective, and I know that, others think this as well, it's one thing to give a perspective in theory, but to actually be a tester of theory, if you will, to me it ups the researcher's credibility, and this is the way that I look at your book, because you are a psychic and intuitive yourself. So not only does the art of intuition come from a scientific perspective, but it also comes from a personal perspective, and that has a different credibility flair, if you will, because you've actually experienced what you're talking about. So that's what I really enjoy.
And it is my belief that we all have these gifts, that they are innate to the human spirit, and that they can be developed. So it was my intention in writing that book to lead people to consider what is intuition, and how do I discern it? How do I know intuition from my own desires or longings, or from cultural conditioning and bias and prejudice, and how do I know that it's really real? And there's so much to say about it. It's just fascinating, fascinating topic. But as I say, everyone has it, everyone can develop it. And I really do believe that it is our God-given gift. Now, it's true that women have it more than men, and some people have it more than other people, the way some people are mathematically inclined and other people are mechanically inclined, let's say, or not. But everybody has it. And also, I would like to say that in the art of intuition, I was careful not to carry this into the realm that I discussed with many of my other books, the realm of angels and the spiritual dimension, although I do believe that the more deeply spiritual you are, the more intuition you have, and that it is related to empathy and compassion. Therefore, it is related to suffering, because the more that we are given the privilege of suffering, the more we have the opportunity of feeling the pain of others and of reaching out compassionately to help each other. So
what you're saying is very profound, Sophie, because in Western culture, we have been taught to sort of bypass, detour pain, to detour suffering. It's almost like we've been psychologically programmed, when in essence the alchemical process of growth is the opposite. We need to walk into the pain, to own it, to dance with it. It's like we're doing this delicate dance between pain, because it causes our growth. So what you're saying is very, very profound. If you will, why is it from your perspective that this delicate dance between pain causes an element of evolutionary process within our consciousness and deepens our intuition, Sophie?
Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? I think, first, I must make a distinction between pain and suffering. We all have pain, but we don't have to suffer. I know that I use the word suffering because I'm so much aware of how much suffering people do. But the suffering is optional. The pain is not. But wallowing in it is. And you're right, we are not taught how to handle either pain or suffering in our society, in this Western culture, the most highly developed country on earth, really, and we have such riches in this country, and as a consequence, it's as if we can't bear the idea that anyone is ever supposed to have pain. But I know from my own experience that every important lesson that I have learned in life, and by that I mean all of the lessons that make life worth living, that is, the ones that carry me to a higher level of understanding, have always begun with the opening of heartbreak. And somehow that seems to be the plane on which a great deal of learning takes place. Until then, we aren't able to absorb it somehow. But with each heartache, with each heartbreak, we become more open and more juice can come in, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strange paradox, isn't it? There's that wonderful story of the gods. All the gods and Buddhas were in convocation. And there was the Buddha of dance, and the Buddhas of joy, and the Buddhas of music. And then there was our Gautama Buddha from Earth's plane. And the others all turned to him and said, "How do you stand it?" They said, "There is so much suffering on your planet." And he said, "That is the only way that these people will learn." So somehow pain and its sister suffering is what we need to knock our heads open and have us learn about just joy. Because the other part of this, for me, is it is so good. There is so much goodness on earth, and there is so much joy and light and compassion and pleasure. This earth is a wonderful, wonderful place to be. I've come to an end there. You have to say
no,
something.
I'm like hanging on every word that you're saying, because as you were speaking, Sophie, I had this realization about your title, the art, and I emphasize the word art of intuition. It is truly, what you're saying is right on point. It is an art to intuition, because we have to be painters, if you will, explorers of this emotional pathway that has been discarded by society. And what I thought was interesting when you said in this Western advanced technological world, and I have to ask myself, are we really as advanced as we perceive ourselves to be? Because if you look from the mundane aspect, we are advanced from a technological aspect, but from an emotional, inner, heartfelt, compassionate way, we are actually not as evolved as we perceive ourselves to be. The propensity of higher intellectual goodness is there, but it's like it's been very
battered by the media and battered by our time. I know it is. You're absolutely right. I have to say that I really dislike the title, The Art of Intuition. I did not want to call it that. I wanted to call it something like Whispers from the Heart. But the publisher chose that title, and I agreed because although I think intuition is an innate ability, there is an art to listening, and there's an art to trusting it, and there's an art to acting on it. And the more you act on your intuition, the more you will have. So I'm looking through the book at the moment, looking for the passage that says, who has intuition, because there's this wonderful segment. And as you know from going through this, I have just the widest definition of intuition. I think that creative artists are operating on intuition, that creativity is a form of intuition, and animal communication, when you suddenly know what your dog or cat or horse is saying, and they're speaking to you, and you know it, that's a form of intuition. Telepathy is a form of intuition, and clairvoyance, and all of those strange little things that say, take this road, don't go here, and that we sometimes so easily override. It comes so fragilely, the intuition, that it's really easy to say, it doesn't make any sense. And of course it doesn't make sense, because intuition will tell you what to do, but it won't tell you why. So you have to act on it, and afterwards you will learn why. There's a snake in that bush, don't take another step. But it won't tell you snake in the bush, it will just say stop. And we have to be very alert to it. Here, it's on page 45 is my thing of the people who are naturally intuitive, and I wanted to just read you a little bit. 89% of women and 72% of men report having gut feelings, and 78% of skeptics report gut feelings in which their stomachs are tied in knots and they have an intuition. And frequently it does come with physical sensations. Your gut does twist, or the hair rises on the back of your neck, or the hair rises on your arm, things like that. So they did one study in 2003, and they discovered that about 50% of women were not telepathic, but 85% of those who were telepathic are women. And women report more experiences than men. Left-handed ambidextrous individuals are significantly more likely to have experiences than right-handed ones. And that's because you're operating on both hemispheres of the brain simultaneously, of course. People with allergies, who suffer perhaps from chronic anxiety, who make decisions based on emotion rather than logic, who practice a mental discipline such as meditation, and people who are open and willing, courageous, unconventional, and curious, all of those people have high intuitions. So it's a great gift. And as I say, it can be developed. They've studied and studied and studied it. No one has any idea what it is. They only have lots of words for it.
Indeed, they do. And do you think the reason why it eludes a lot of scientists is because it percolates on a different type of sensory perception paradigm, meaning that it deals from the emotional rather than through, I guess you
rather
could say,
than the intellectual plane. I think that is exactly it. And I think also because it can't be replicated. You know, scientists like to have a situation where they can test it again and again and again and again and again. And then they say, in 70% of the tests that we did, we discovered X, Y, Z. But what they discover when they start doing studies in psychic matters or intuition or the paranormal, to use a disreputable type word, is that it cannot be replicated. Even when they're doing things with really good psychics, and they have the psychics turn over a card and say, what the next card is going to be. It's going to be a red card or a black card. It's going to be the Jack of Diamonds, or it's going to be the